So the Golden Globe nominations came out this morning. I tried to do a reaction video in my class and it did not work. Unfortunately, I was not able to do that this year. The past 2 years I've been able to do reaction videos because I got lucky and I was home. This year, however, I was not so lucky. I was at school when they came out. I knew it would be impossible for me to avoid the entire day, and so alas, I decided to watch them there and give myself a little bit more time throughout the day to look at nominations instead of doing my work and sort of gather an analysis of it and lead me to this video. And these nominations were interesting. While some categories were pretty clear-cut, others were a little strange. There were some huge snubs that I think a lot of people did not anticipate, and there were a couple surprises that people did not anticipate. Let me preface this video by saying, if you're here looking for me talking about TV, you should probably leave now. I'm talking strictly about movies. We're on the race to the Oscars here. I know a little bit about TV. Like, I'd seen Big Little Lies. I'd seen Fargo. I might have seen one other show that had been nominated, but I'm not really up to date with that kind of stuff, so I'm not here talking about that. We're here talking about movies and the big movie categories and what happened, what really matters, what questions do we now have, what's leading us into those nominations about a month away, a little over a month away now. I'm very excited. I was super pumped this morning when I had the Golden Globe page up. It's a big thing every year. I was super excited to be able to go back and watch these nominations, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them. So, I'm going to start by, I want to run down, like, category by category, hypothetically, that's the goal, and then hopefully, like, get to most of my talking points from there. So, we'll obviously start with Best Picture. Best Picture Drama, I don't have anything to say about, truth be told. That was, I think, exactly how everybody sort of predicted that category panning out. You had Dunkirk, Call Me By Your Name, The Post, The Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I mean, there's really not much to say about that. Well, where the interesting stuff comes in is with the comedy musical stuff, and sort of everyone's prediction of The Big Sick being in there, being replaced by The Greatest Showman. I don't think The Greatest Showman will appear anywhere at the Oscars. I think that movie will probably be pretty okay. I don't think it's going to blow anyone away enough to get Oscar nominations. But I think talking about The Big Sick is important, because a lot of people, including myself, were sort of going, okay, well, it'll probably show up in smaller doses at the Oscars, but the Golden Globes is a place where it'll have a chance to shine. It's got a whole comedy musical section right there for it. Nope. In its defense, I will say that this is probably one of the tightest comedy musical categories in years. Usually it's just sort of where they dump the shit that they need extra nominations for, and like last year everyone was going, okay, well, La La Land is going to sweep the entire thing. But this year, like, there are some movies that are actually really up in contention for Oscars that are nominated in this category. You've got I, Tonya, The Disaster Artist, Lady Bird. Like, it's a pretty important category. And so, The Big Sick, not only not showing up in Comedy Musical Best Picture, but not showing up at all. No nominations for this movie, I think is actually kind of a big deal. I think maybe we've all been overestimating the amount of steam that it has. Now, despite that, it did show up a lot at the Spirit Awards, so that is something to keep in mind in terms of the balance. But Holly Hunter was not nominated, but she was replaced by, like, fucking Helen Mirren for something. What was it? It was like, I don't even know that. Does anyone know what that movie is? There's always one. There's always one where you're sitting there and you're like, who the fuck and what the fuck is that, you know? But there was, and the fact that it didn't get a screenplay nomination, I don't think is that shocking to me, because the Hollywood Foreign Press Association likes to do this thing where they don't have original and adapted, they just pick top 5, which I'll get to in a little bit, but it just didn't show up anywhere, and I think that does kind of hurt its chances, seeing as it couldn't even excel in a best comedy category. Like, that's kind of shocking to me that it didn't show up anywhere. So maybe we've been overestimating The Big Sick a little bit. Maybe we've been giving it too much credit. Maybe the summer release date did really hurt it. But then on the other hand, something like Dunkirk showed up a fair amount in motion picture and director and score. Like, I don't know. I think this is one that maybe we've been too confident about, and whether or not it shows up or not, because Screenplay is probably, this is some of the tightest Oscar race I think we're going to have seen in a long time. Screenplay and director, and I think I said, what did I say earlier? I said something else, are like some of the tightest they've been in a long time, in my opinion. I think Screenplay and director especially. are incredibly tight. So we're gonna have to see who ends up squeezing in there and who gets shut out. And I think this could have been a pretty big deal for that. Best Director was also pretty clear cut, although Martin McDonagh made it in, which a lot of people didn't expect to happen. I personally expected that to happen, and I think he has a good shot at showing up at the Academy Awards. The one that did not show up was Greta Gerwig, and she was replaced by Ridley Scott for All the Money in the World. So let's talk about that for a second, shall we? All the Money in the World showed up in a couple different places. It showed up in Director. Michelle Williams was nominated, and Christopher Plummer was nominated. Michelle Williams... Sorry, it's cold. I get, actually, simply for the fact that the Hollywood Foreign Press Association has to give 10 nominations to women, and I think a lot of people are expecting the nominees for lead actress to be like Frances McDormand, and then you've got Sally Hawkins, but you've also got people like Saoirse Ronan and Margot Robbie who are in the musical comedy category, so they had to fill drama, and they put Jessica Chastain in there, who I don't think has no shot. I do actually think she has a shot. I talked about why in an earlier video. And they filled it with Michelle Williams. I don't think All the Money in the World is going to show up at the Oscars. And my reasoning for this sounds like bullshit, but when you really look at the history of the Golden Globes, it's not. There's always one movie that's like, that's just a Golden Globes thing. And I think it's this one. I personally don't see this showing up anywhere. I will say it has its best shot now than it did before, because doing everything that it did and recasting and being that ballsy, that probably did garner the attention of certain Academy voters, and they're going to go, okay, well, let's check this movie out and really kind of give it a second thought. So who knows, you know, maybe this is an actual precursor, and maybe this is showing us that move was one of the smartest things maybe ever done. But I don't know, I think Ridley Scott taking a director nomination is kind of huge, to be honest with you. Like, again, knocking out Greta Gerwig and Jordan Peele, again, I'll get to that later. Like, it was kind of crazy to see that happen, and so I think that does open up a lot of questions as to what does the future of this movie look like for the rest of award season. Personally, I sort of see it stopping here, but truth be told, I mean, you really never know. Lead actor and lead actress, I actually have nothing to say about, other than one thing in lead actor. They are pretty straightforward, to be honest. Everyone that most people thought would be nominated was nominated. Everyone who I think is up for possibilities at the Oscars were nominated. I didn't see anyone that I was like, man, they were... I thought they were going to be a big contender, and they didn't show up, especially with lead actor. Everyone I anticipated to show up for lead actor showed up, and lead actress was the same deal. The only thing that was interesting that I found was lead actor, rest in peace, Jake Gyllenhaal. In my opinion, Jake Gyllenhaal's only shot at anything was being nominated here, and he didn't even get that. So I just think, I'm telling you guys, September is where award season movies go to die. Award season movies will never make it out of September. I stand by it. It's insane. Because, like, if anywhere, this is where Jake Gyllenhaal would have showed up. Because, again, someone had to fill that slot for, the fourth slot for Best Leading Actor. A lot of people are debating whether that's going to go to James Franco or someone else or whatever. But Denzel Washington snuck in there and got that spot for Roman J. Israel Esquire, and leaving Jake Gyllenhaal in the dust. And so I think that's kind of it for him. I think he's done. Poor guy. He's gotten fucked so many times. He is so goddamn talented, and he just gets fucked every time. It reminds me of Bradley Cooper, who was I think nominated 3 times, and the poor bastard, every time he was nominated, someone was way better. He was nominated for Silver Linings Playbook up against Daniel Day-Lewis. He was up in, I think it was when he was in fucking American Hustle. He was up against like Michael Fassbender and Jared Leto. American Sniper Year, he was up against someone who was clear cut to win. He's just gotten boned. Oh, that was Eddie Redmayne, I think. Like, he's just gotten screwed. Same thing with Jake Gyllenhaal. Year and year, he just gets fucked. Poor guy. So, now we're going to get into the supporting categories, which are a lot more interesting, and I'm excited to talk about, because I think with supporting categories, the Golden Globes not only did not answer the questions we wanted asked, I think they opened more. Supporting actor, I think actually this kind of helped to lock in certain people. Willem Dafoe, Sam Rockwell, and Armie Hammer in particular. I know a lot of people aren't as confident in Armie Hammer. I'm confident in Armie Hammer to be nominated for the Oscars this year. Am I confident in Richard Jenkins? I haven't seen enough of his performance to know yet. I'd like to see the movie first, but I'm going to kind of steer clear from him from now. So for the sake of this video, let's say those four are kind of lock-ins, because I think they might be, unless Richard Jenkins gets switched out for Michael Shannon, which could happen. Christopher Plummer getting nominated is a really, really interesting call. And I personally don't think that's going to happen. I just kind of think this movie's going to fizzle out and wither away. Unless it catches on like wildfire, which I don't see happening, but who knows. I think this opens the question of who takes that fifth spot? Who takes that final entry into the supporting actor category, and does that throw things off at all? Do you put in a double nomination? Do you put in Michael Shannon to back up Richard Jenkins both for Shape of Water? Maybe do you put in Michael Stahlberg for Call Me by Your Name and have double nominations there? There are a lot of different people that could be put into that category. You could scroll down the list and you start noticing, wow, there are a lot of big names and a lot of competition for it this year. Who really knows? Maybe it could be Christopher Plummer. We genuinely don't know. I think SAG Award nominations on Wednesday could help to be a determinant in that regard, but obviously maybe not. You know, you never know. But, like, again, last year, they gave the Golden Globe to Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who then was not nominated for the Oscar. Truth be told, I would not be shocked if they gave it to Christopher Plummer this year. I think that'd be kind of a Golden Globe thing to do, but I do think this begs the question of who's going to fill that fifth spot, and whether it would be Christopher Plummer or someone else, like the people I just named, maybe even like Jason Mitchell from Mudbound. Again, I'll kind of get to Mudbound. I have, like, kind of a list of movies in general I want to talk about. I touched on The Big Sick, and I have a couple more I want to get to. But I think that begs an interesting question. And then you get then you get to supporting actress, which was also kind of an interesting round, because first and foremost I'll talk about Mary J. Blige. I've said that I would like to see, before I even say anything about Mudbound, come time for the Oscars, I'd like to see how Mary J. Blige, or not Mary J. Blige, the movie in general does at other award shows. And it appeared here, but it didn't, like, show up here, if you know what I think. It got a Best Song nomination, and she was nominated. So, truth be told, I don't think this helped its odds at all. I think it just kind of has it remaining at this middle ground. And I think it's impossible to predict what's going to happen with this movie, because two things will happen. Either the Academy will not nominate it at all for the sake that it's a Netflix film, or they will nominate it in hopes of redeeming themselves for something like Idris Elba back from Beasts of No Nation, and they received a lot of controversy for that. I haven't seen the movie yet. I plan on watching it soon. I've heard great things. But I don't know. Again, I'd like to see which way the Academy is going to swing in terms of whether or not this movie will show up or not. But it also could kind of, in a sense, show up like this, in smaller doses. But then you start looking at Dee Rees and the movie being nominated for Best Picture, which didn't happen in either place in the Golden Globe nominations. But I personally don't think there's any way to know or call that as of right now. I'd like to wait for the actual Academy Awards nominations before really anything is going to be sure. And now let's talk about Screenplay. I said Screenplay in both adapted and original are very tight this year, but man, was this fucking weird. The reason it's weird is that it knocked out the two front runners right now for original screenplay: Call Me by Your Name and Get Out. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association did not seem to like Get Out at all. I don't know what, but it almost, for me, felt like they were giving it picture and lead actor as kind of pity nominations. And the whole comedy musical thing, I don't know what the hell is happening behind the scenes with Get Out, but something weird has to be going on. It just feels like, to me, they didn't like the movie. And there's nothing we can really do about that. But it didn't show up in Screenplay, which I think is kind of crazy. I understand that it didn't show up in Director, but still, like, it was something that I figured definitely would show up in Screenplay, and it didn't. And the other one was Call Me by Your Name, which did not only not show up for Screenplay, but not for Director. So, again, this all could just add up to it's the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, because I 100% see Call Me By Your Name an adapted screenplay. I don't think there's any doubt that it's nominated, if not winning for that. But Get Out, man, was weird. I don't know. Something weird about that. Something fishy for me. I don't know. That was strange. That was a strange snub. I don't know, man. We'll have to see. I still have confidence in Get Out to show up in original screenplay, but this could hurt its chances of winning. This could maybe lean it towards something like 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, or even like The Post. Original screenplay is more tight than adapted screenplay. I think Call Me By Your Name will take adapted screenplay. And also, you have to look at the fact that in recent years, the last 2 years in particular, the Golden Globes has not exactly been on a hot streak with screenplay. 2015, I believe, they gave it to Steve Jobs, which in my opinion was a fantastic screenplay, but then it did not show up at all at the Oscars. I find that interesting, how it can win Best Screenplay in general and then not show up in a divided section of Best Screenplay. And then they gave it to La La Land last year, which, as much as I like La La Land, was a load of horse shit. You give that to Manchester, or you give it to like, Moonlight or something. Like, La La Land did not have the best screenplay that year. They should have given it to Manchester by the Sea. But again, I stand by, that sort of signifies they're not exactly doing so great in terms of being a precursor for screenplay recently, so I think it's important to keep that in mind when they give it to whatever movie they give it to, and not being like, well, that makes it a front runner. Like, I don't think so. I think they're probably going to give it to 3 Billboards. They seem to really like 3 Billboards, with a picture and a director and lead actor, or lead actress and supporting actor, and then screenplay. They seem to really like that movie, so I think they're probably going to give it to that. Same thing with Nocturnal Animals. They seem to really like Nocturnal Animals, and then they gave it to Aaron Taylor Johnson. So, that's my prediction. If you want my Golden Globe prediction, that you'll be seeing that win screenplay. But yeah, I wouldn't start like leaning one way or another just on that basis. Is there anything else I want to talk about? I wrote down Ansel Elgort. Whoop whoop ? I really liked Baby Driver, but all right. Oh, Hong Chow for Downsizing. What the fuck? That was weird. I remember seeing her name a long time ago on the list of predictions. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think Downsizing just had this potential with the fact that it was Alexander Payne, and he was directing it, and it was his movie, and then slowly but surely reviews came out, and then its chances just kind of took a dip, and kept taking a dip, and then everyone started forgetting about that movie, and now it's gone. I don't think, unless she's like the one nomination for the movie, I don't see Downsizing appearing anywhere at the Oscars. So again, unless they're like, well, she was really good, so we'll give it to her. Personally, I don't see that happening. They also gave Octavia Spencer a nomination. Supporting actress was fucking weird. Supporting actress was weird. I think supporting actress this year in general, though, is kind of weird. I find supporting actress this year very hard to predict. I started making my entire list for Oscar predictions, and I found supporting actress to be relatively difficult to start compiling. The only ones I have in there for sure are Laurie Metcalf and Allison Janney, and I've struggled on getting others, because now I saw Darkest Hour, and I thought Kristen Scott Thomas was really great, so, like, I don't know. I'm struggling with that category. I'm hoping the SAG Award nominations on Wednesday will help me with that. But Octavia Spencer, she kind of did the same thing last year. Not that many people earlier in the season had expected her to ride through for Hidden Figures, and then she did. I don't think she deserved it. I thought Taraji P. Henson stole that movie far and away, and Octavia Spencer was just kind of, she was fine. But maybe she'll do the same thing this year. Maybe she'll just kind of ride all the way through and keep getting nominations, and nobody saw it coming. Who knows? I had one more thing written down that I want to talk about. Oh yeah, Steve Carell and Emma Stone. What the fuck? That movie fucking sucked. I'm sorry, I hated that movie. If you want to know how much I hated that movie, go watch my review, because I spent, like, I don't know how long shitting on that movie. That was a poorly made movie. They really fucked that up. And, like, the two of them, really? Okay. Fine. So, that's gonna do it for this big analysis video. I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. What do you think these nominations meant for the rest of award season? What is your take on these? SAG Award nominations come out Wednesday, which obviously doesn't mean much for, like, Best Picture or Screenplay, but it does mean a lot for performance categories, so I'm definitely going to be doing a video on that when that comes out, so look out for that. Hopefully on Wednesday. I'm going to go start editing this right now and get this out before people stop caring. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.